Good morning, this is MotherMantiss. I'm back with another Dragon Age video. The lore in Dragon Age is very, very thick. It's very comprehensive, and not all of us are giant lore nerds. So I thought it might be nice to put together a series of videos, of which this is going to be the first one, that answer specific questions and give you little tidbits of lore that kind of help give you context going into Veilguard and answer specific questions that you might be wondering about as you go into the game. A lot of people perhaps haven't played the predecessors. I mean, the most recent one is 10 years old. You may not want to go back and play all three of the predecessor games and their DLC, even though those DLCs, I would recommend playing them because they really do give you a crap ton of information about the game world. But if you don't want to, or you just don't remember all the details, this little series is designed to give you in little bites information about the game that will give you context. Pieces of information such as who is Solas, why did he make the veil, why does he now want to take it down, stuff like that. And by necessity, because the lore is very complex and very thick, I will be paring it down to just the most basic information. So if you're a major lore nerd, don't have a cow because I didn't include absolutely everything there is to know about a given subject. I really have to do just the most basic information, the most necessary information to give somebody context. So having said all that, if you have something that you want me to discuss in an episode like this, then let me know and I'd be happy to make a short little video. I'm calling them Dragon Bites because I want them to be bite-sized and short and easy to watch. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you have ideas for the series. Thanks a lot and enjoy the video.
Ooh, mommy.
The Chantry teaches Thetis that the Maker created the veil in ancient times in order to protect her people against spirits and demons. That's the simple story that the Chantry teaches the humans in Thetis. But the real one is that Solas created it, and his reasons are a lot more complex and a lot more noble. Solas confirms in the DLC Trespasser that it was he who created the veil. It gets a little complicated because the established fact in the game world is mixed up to some degree with the myth in the world. The same thing happens in real-world ancient history, so bear with me. First of all, a kind of a quick and dirty explanation of what the veil is. It's a metaphysical barrier that sifted and separated the spirit and demon world from the physical one in Thetis. If you recall, ancient elves were considered to be almost made of magic and light. They were immortal. They lived and breathed magic like we live and breathe on air and water. It was literally part of who they were. Prior to the veil's creation, the elves in the Dragon Age world were a proud, noble race who lived in spectacular and spectacularly beautiful magic-infused cities. Solas erected the veil as a punishment against a group of elven mages and leaders called the Evanuris. He did it as his final attempt to protect the world from a very powerful group of tyrants among the Evanuris who were aspiring to elevate themselves to godhood. They were beginning to enslave their own people, and also he did it for their murder of one of their own, Mythal, to whom Solas was very close, because Mythal was objecting to what they were doing. Solas was trying to separate the Evanuris from their source of power. He was not trying to destroy the elves, or their culture, or their immortality when he created the veil. But that's what happened. Solas, however, did not know that immediately because the effort of his spellcasting was so massive that he collapsed into sort of a magical coma for hundreds of years before recovering enough strength to wake up. Solas, then, is not a typical villain in that sense. He's both regretful and conflicted. The veil, as it turns out, served the human non-magical population of Thetis well. It allowed people to migrate in, to grow, prosper, and become dominant in the hundreds of years since being created. But, as I mentioned, when the veil popped into existence, it cut off that connection to magic that had been intrinsic to the elves. It rendered them mortal. It made them powerless. It withered them and destroyed their city. And as soon as they were powerless, they became the victims of places like Tevinter, who invaded and enslaved them. Over generations, they became what you see in the alienages in Dragon Age Origins and beyond. Imagine being Solas in that situation. The absolute gut-wrenching shock at what has happened to your people, what you caused to happen to them. When you get to know Solas and Inquisition, and particularly if you romance him, you learn that he's a deeply thoughtful person. He has embraced the names the elves have for him. He understands that he is set apart and reviled by his own people. He wears that badge and accepts the mythology and uses it for his own purpose. He is aware that by rectifying the damage he has caused his own people, he risks untold destruction to the people who have risen up in the meantime. He has, after all, made friends here, even fallen in love. But he cannot abandon those people he destroyed for these modern people, even if he sees value and goodness in them, even if he has loved one of them. So he's had to choose between the two and to harden his heart to all the pleas to stop. You may not agree with him, but it's really not that hard to understand why he's doing it. So when you enter Minrathous with Varric and the gang you assemble, particularly if you have not played the previous games, try to remember that Solas is in a terrible position. He is literally damned whether the veil stays up or comes down. But now that you know why he wants it down, you might be able to see why, if another, bigger villain makes an appearance, Solas might choose to help you instead of working against you, whether in the end it turns out that the veil can be saved, should be saved, or cannot be saved, and should not be saved. We're going to have to play the game to find out.